Well, welcome to another amazing episode of the Wearable Takeover podcast. Yes, folks, can you believe we are in season 3? I am Coach L, also known as Lakeisha Greenway, your host, and I'm so excited to tell you about our amazing guest, Amira Radovic. But before I do that, I just have to recap the amazing summer we had. Yes, we also produced our Wearable Tech Hackathon, and that's where we brought people from around the world, some of the amazing leader experts from Fitbit and Deloitte and Under Armour and Boeing and so many other companies to assess your ideas as well as to assess our youth. And we had some amazing winners. So if you missed that opportunity to participate with us this year, I encourage you to go to the website wearabletechventures.org and make sure you sign up for our mailing list so you don't miss any of those opportunities next year. I can tell you that some of our youth winners are super excited based off of the gifts that they received as well as the opportunities they've received to actually share their pitches with some of our corporate sponsors as well as our partners such as Under Armour and the NIH, and they have really cool Bose sunglasses. All right, so that's all I'm going to share about that from this year, but let's get into our guest of the day. Now, folks, if you follow me or if you follow the Wearable Tech Ventures page on LinkedIn, you might have seen this amazing scientist on our page. Recently, she and I were featured for hashtag We Wednesday, which is a series sponsored by the USPTO, and her story was just absolutely amazing. So I want you to welcome Amira Radovic, who is the CEO and founder of TheraV. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
TheraV. Yes, TheraV to our platform. And you want to make sure you're paying attention because in seasons 1 and season 2, we talked about how you can fundraise. We also discussed some of the things that you should keep in mind when you are fundraising. And that advice came from our accountant. But let me tell you, Amira has raised about $500,000 of non-dilutive funding. Yes, folks, I just said $500,000. Okay. And so she raised that to develop and to launch her product into the marketplace. So who is she? Again, Amira is the CEO and founder of TheraV, a company developing wearable devices to help manage amputation and nerve pain. She's a social entrepreneur with a passion for positively impacting lives, and she has a master's degree in entrepreneurship and design from the University of Delaware and a bachelor's degree in biomedical engineering. Aren't you excited about all these amazing women that we brought onto this platform from biomedical engineering? So dope. Okay, but let me tell you something else about her. So while she was pursuing both of her degrees, she was a full scholarship student athlete for the University of Delaware Women's Track and Field Division, and she holds the university's record for the long and triple jump. So we're going to talk and see about, her Olympic aspirations because we went to the Olympics, and so we want to see, what might she be there in the future. But let me just tell you a little bit about how she came to this field. So as a child, she was inspired by her father, a civil engineer, and then she also was inspired by sci-fi movies such as like RoboCop. You guys remember that? Oh yeah. And so that helped her to become a biomedical engineer. And so her fascination with using technology to give humans super abilities led her to work in a prosthetic clinic during her junior year as an undergraduate student at the University of Delaware. So let me just tell you that Amira, she developed TheraV Elix. It's a patent pending drug free wearable device that uses vibration therapy to manage phantom limb pain. TheraV Elix works by applying customized vibrations to the residual limb to disrupt the pain signals that are related to the brain, providing comfort during phantom limb pain attacks. Folks, you want to stay tuned. You want to hear about how this works, how she came up with this idea. But for now, let's give a virtual round of applause for Amira. Amira, welcome to Wearable Takeover.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You are so impressive, and I foresee that you could be on our wall of fame in the near future. Our virtual wall of fame, metaverse wall of fame. Okay, so tell me this. Let's talk about these numbers first. $500,000. It is, we're still in a phase of time where females raising $1 million is a major feat, right? And to raise what you've done, being in this field, How do you feel about that? Number one, do you realize that what you're doing is historic? And do you realize the impact of that?
I mean, sometimes like I look back and I have to like look at the numbers again. I'm like, wow, I really came far. But my goal is to try and raise 1 million. I still haven't hit that yet. Of course, it's like the challenges that come with that. But I mean, to get this far in non-dilutive funding and to go from idea to product into the market, I'm very proud of myself. I really am.
We are proud of you too. And one of the pathways that we advocate for with our founders is that of non dilutive funding. And for those of you that have listened to our podcast in the past, we've actually highlighted some of those pathways. So, Amir, let's break down non dilutive funding. How did you get introduced to it? And then who did you call on to help you, or did you do this by yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I started out, I knew nothing about funding whatsoever. I was very fortunate that my very first introduction to entrepreneurship, pitching, and funding was from a pitch competition through the University of Delaware. And it was called the First Step Grand Challenge, where they basically challenged students to come up with an idea for an unmet need, come up with a solution. You didn't have to build anything, present it. And if you made it past the semifinals, you get $500 to
Nice.
do whatever you want with it. I used mine to build a prototype. I didn't use the whole 500, but I used part of it to build a prototype. And then if you get first place at that time, the first place prize was $2,000. Second place was 1,500, and third place was 500. And to my surprise and everybody's surprise, I came in third place. So I had an additional $500. And that was really my first step of funding of like, wow, people are giving me money for this idea. What? And that's really how I started learning about entrepreneurship, fundraising, pitch competitions as a major way to get these fundings that I need. And that's really what started my journey with non-dilutive funding, trying to get funding that no one is taking part of your company or equity from you. They're just giving you grants to do what you want with. And all of that, I was very fortunate to put towards developing my product and my company.
I love it. Okay, so folks, she just broke it down for you on what non-dilutive funding is. Okay, so why don't you tell us from that first time you raised that $500 to the benchmark you're at now, how long did that take?
That's a very good question. So that pitch happened in the winter of 2015. And actually, after that pitch, I was not planning to do anything. I was just like, oh, well, I got this. I approved this as something that somebody should pursue. And then the Horn Entrepreneurship at University of Delaware, they're the ones, and Dan Freeman were the ones that say, hey, Mira, there's this thing called entrepreneurship. You should check it out. We have pitch competitions that we hold for students. You should try that out as well. And so from then, because of that program, I started doing pitch competition through that program and through other competitions that they told me about that were for university students. So from then till the last time I got funding was, I believe, 2022, 22, I think. 21. December of 2021, when I got $100,000 from the state of Delaware through their Edge grant.
I
Yeah,
love it. So it's
that
about
was
six
fun.
years, right? Is
Yeah,
that fair
about
to say about
exactly
6 years?
about that exactly.
I love it. And the reason I wanted to point that out is because there are so many stories that are coming out in the media and on social media that highlight founders that have raised a significant amount of funding. However, very few times does it record the journey of
Yes.
how long it takes. And so for those of you that may be in your first or second year and you might be frustrated, I want you to know it took her about 6 years to get to this particular point. We are working very hard at Wearable Tech Ventures for founders like all of you to fast track some of that process. But one of the things I always tell founders is that if you cannot give your venture or your idea at least 7 years, don't even get
Mhm.
started. Because just off of personal experience, I know it can take some time. So throughout your journey, you started off with some major highs, that $500, and I got to talk about that prototype, how you did that, right? But what kept you going in this? Like, you had this idea, but did you ever want to give up during that 6 year process?
Oh yes, most definitely. Especially starting out without a co-founder, I did try to find people to become co-founders with me, but really couldn't find people that were as passionate as I was about this space. A lot of people just wanted to make money which is completely understandable. Like I wanted to make money too. That would have been great. But just knowing that because this was something I was really passionate about, and I saw the impact, just like speaking to people about what I was trying to do, taking my prototypes to different amputee support groups, different conferences, going to people's homes, their offices, and meeting them, and seeing their eyes light up and be like, yeah, this might work. Or no, you're gonna need to, like, they were really participating with me and very welcoming to me. And I knew this was something that they were desperately looking for a solution for. So that really was what kept me going. It was really hard because, again, with limited funding, as I said, it took me 6 years to raise that much money. And it started with like small increments of money, 1,000, 5,000 here, 500 here, like little bits of money coming in, me applying to different competitions, filling out all those forms that took forever to do. And I didn't even think I was going to get it. And surprise, here you are. It's like, oh, great. Running out of money and then getting a grant that comes out. It's like, oh, wow. Okay, perfect. I guess I'm going to keep going then. I was just very fortunate. It's like God was really, really just showing me like, this is what you need to do. I didn't want to take this path. It was not something I planned. It literally fell on my lap and I couldn't go left or right. It's like, Amira, this is where you're going. Go. And so I did. So I was very fortunate to have also a great support system for my then boyfriend at that time. So when I started dating my husband, who I'm married to now, for my parents. My parents didn't really understand. My mom especially didn't really know what entrepreneurship. Like, what's that? Like, you got a degree in biomedical engineering, go get a job. My dad, goodness, he was an entrepreneur, so he understood. He's like, yeah, man, like give it a shot, see what happens. And just the support system from the Horn Entrepreneurship Program, as I mentioned, they really were supporting me every step of the way. I had mentors like, Amira, yes, it's gonna be hard. Even if you fail, let me let you know, like, I forget what number was. I think it was like 90%. I can't honestly, I'm making that number up, of like companies fail within the first 5 years. And that's perfectly fine. Yep. That's perfectly fine. Give it a shot, try, see what happens. And if it doesn't work out, at least you learn something along the way that can help you to your future career. And I was like, you know what? That's the mindset I'm going to go with. Like, no matter what happens, it's going to be good. Yeah.
I love it. And one of the beautiful things about being in this segment of wearable technology, number one, we understand what it is, right? And so I often tell our founders, we get you even if the world doesn't get you. That's the beautiful thing about our ecosystem. And you face some of that as well from your immediate family. And I know that could be a huge discouragement factor for our founders. Not only did I face that, but a number of our founders have as well. But the other thing I want to point out is your unique perspective. And that's one of the beautiful things about being in wearable technology is that we have some amazing people that have an eye, that are looking at problems from an entirely different vantage point that nobody else has even attempted to solve. And here you could go and you can raise funding and make a product. So folks, it is possible. Amira right here, she's definitely proof of that. So let's backtrack a little bit to this first prototype. So you raised $500 from your first pitch competition. And so we got to talk about that pitch as well, but let's focus on this prototype for right now. What did you do? How did you distribute that money, and what did that first prototype look like?
So I signed up for this pitch competition, and the first part of the pitch competition was obviously submitting the paperwork, and then they invite you to do a presentation. You do a presentation. There were a lot of teams that also had applied. I also had my senior design team apply, and we made it to the next step as well. And then I started a prosthetic and orthotic club at my university. And so we applied with another idea, and then we also made it to the next step. So I had 3 companies I was jumping from poster to poster to poster.
I love it.
But that first competition, after that, I was surprised that my idea made it to the next step. I was like, this is such a simple idea. I mean, simple ideas that I couldn't build. I mean, it was simple in concept, but building, right. I didn't know what I was going to do. And so when I got that $500, it was a Visa gift card. I remembered it and I was like, did they really just give me $500 to do with what I want, with this idea that came out of my head? For me, it was just like mind blowing. I just couldn't believe it. And so what I did with that money is I knew for the final competition, I really wanted people to get a visual of what I was trying to do. One, I didn't think, and I was a junior undergraduate student at that time when I came up with the idea and was pitching it. And I think, no, I was a senior when I pitched the final. But when I came up with the idea, I was a junior undergrad. And so I wanted for them to have a visual of what I was trying to do. And I was like, okay, I don't feel confident in my product development knowledge and skills. I haven't graduated yet. I didn't really see myself as an engineer yet. I feel like I didn't know much. But I knew what I can do is, I was like, the idea is to basically vibrate the limb. How can I create something that people can have an understanding of what I'm trying to do? I initially came up with the idea of using a vibrating platform. That was what I designed in a 3D AutoCAD model that
Okay.
I presented at a symposium when I initially came up with the idea, before I shelved the idea for like a year and then did this pitch. And so I was like, so how can I take that into just so people have a concept? And then it hit me about, maybe I can do like some kind of sock that someone can put like their fist into and it would vibrate and they'll have an idea of what I was trying to do, like vibrating the limb.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went on Amazon, found a 9-volt battery, found a counterweight motor. I got like a vibrating belt, and I took the vibrating belt apart, cut some wires, connected the motors that were in the belt to a 9-volt battery. And then my goal was to sew pockets into a sock to just put those motors in there, which is vibrating and wearable vibration. That was the
Yeah.
idea. But I didn't consider myself a seamstress. Like, yeah, I knew how to sew and use a sewing machine, but I needed something clean looking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I asked around. There was a fashion student at my university, and I was like, "Hey, can you do you know someone that can help me? I'm trying to prototype for this competition, blah blah blah." And then she told me, like, yeah, we have a fashion department. I was like, we have a what? She's like, we have a fashion department at the university. I can introduce you. I was like, we have a fashion department at our university? She's like, yeah. I was like, I didn't even know we had I'm an engineering student. I didn't even know we had a fashion department at our university. And so long story short, she introduced me to a professor there at that time. And I told her what I was trying to do. She goes, okay, yeah, you could put pockets here. I can sew that for you. She was so kind to give me her time. She sewed the pockets for me, put the little neoprene thing that I wanted to put on the inside, and gave it to me. And all I had to do was put my motors into the pockets, and I had my teammates be my experimental guinea pigs. I had them all try, like a lot of them try. I was like, hey, come over to my apartment. I have something for you guys to try and prototype for me. I took it to practice. And then they would like put their fist and they're like, oh, this is interesting. This is really cool. I was like, Ray, I was like, you get what I'm trying to do? Like vibrating the limb, like a nice massage. And they would give me their feedback. And that
Mm-hmm.
was what I took to the competition. I made it as simple as possible with the skills I had, because the idea was in my head. I knew what I was trying to communicate, and I knew how limited or how the extent of my skills. So I was able to at least build something that most people will look at and be like, yeah, I could have done that.
I wish I would have known you back then because I went to South by Southwest, and at the time I had done a little exhibit with Omi Bell from Black Girl Ventures for UN Women, and so I actually had a massager that brought plenty of people to our table as we were trying to explain wearable technology. And it was, everybody was stopping there to get their little therapy. And I was, telling them, it would have been really cool to have your device there as well. So we keep that in mind for the future. So from your first prototype to where you are now, what did that process look like? And how did you find resources to help you develop that? And the reason I'm asking this is because so often founders feel overwhelmed when they think about developing their prototype, finding resources, finding folks to help them on the technical side if they have multiple components, and they can feel like they want to give up. Because when you look at supply chain, of course, during the pandemic, there were supply chain challenges, excuse me. But then we know that there's a lot of things that are changing here in the States as far as resources to help folks with that full development. So from that first prototype to where you are now, what did that process look like? And then what resources did you use to help you get to that product that you see today?
Yeah, so it was definitely a long journey. I was told before I started that, it usually takes like up to 7 to 10 years to launch a product into the market. And I was able to do that in the beta we launched in 2018 from like pitching from 2015. And so that was very surprising to a lot of people. I was like a very small company, it was just me, myself, and I. So of course I'm gonna move fast with the resources I had. But what I did is that as I mentioned, I started doing a lot of pitch competitions, taking that prototype with me to other pitch competitions, having just something that I can show people, even if it was a sketch or drawing, whatever it is, animation, whatever it was, that they can have a visual or even touch what I was trying to do. I think that really helped me with a lot of competitions that I won. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, I was doing, my company was focused on social impact. We were trying to change the lives of of individuals who were suffering from this pain that was affecting their life.
Yeah.
And I think, and people usually tell me I'm a good storyteller. And so I think that also helped. And during those pitch competitions, I would always have there was always someone, one, two, three people that would come to me and be like, Amira, I love what you're trying to do. I love what you're doing. I would love to help you, even if it's to connect you to this person, that person. The person who the Horn Entrepreneurship is named after, Charlie Horn, he heard about me and what I was doing. I went to a symposium for one of the pitch competitions that they have at UD. They had like an exhibition for companies that didn't make it to the finals of the pitch competition, which I made the following year. So that was when I won it.
Great.
But he was there and he introduced me to an engineer named Chris Wells. So Chris Wells owns a product prototyping and product development company. And he introduced us. I told Chris what I was trying to do. I showed him my prototypes. He goes, yeah, I can help you with that. At that time, I was very fortunate to have him give me a discount,
Nice.
a good discount, to help me kind of start prototyping and building my product so I can have some form of not a finished product, but a more refined product to take to these amputee support groups that I was going to. Because at first I was learning about Arduino. And so at first I was using an Arduino board, getting all the different motors wherever I could get them, like just testing different type of vibration, intensity patterns, etc. I hate programming, but I had to do it. And so I would have like wires sticking out of things like everywhere. Everything was just a mess. I would just carry boxes of things. People were like, you could be more organized. I was like, I'm trying. I'm trying. So I knew I had to carry something that was more compact, like without wires sticking out. And so with Chris, I was able to like really develop different prototypes that were more refined than what I had, that I can take to an amputee support group and have someone actually wear around their residual limb. Because initially what I had was a sock that you would put your fist over.
Right.
And I needed to test different type of vibrating motors and such. And so with Chris, every prototype that we did, I would go back to him and let him know, like, okay, we need to change this. Like, this is what they said. He's like, okay, yeah. And then he would like, okay, we can do it this way. We can do it that way. And then we'll sit there like sketching, making different sketches and drawing things. And man, when I think about that, those were the days. Those were the days of just grinding, trying to figure things out. But it was also very exciting because like you can see like the progress of this thing that you had in your head.
Right.
And so I had different iteration. I can't even count how many iterations I have. A lot. Probably like I think I had more than like 8 iterations of my device before I got to the beta version that I launched into the market. And initially it went from a vibrating sock to a vibrating band. So I initially started out with a sock, but after doing a lot of customer interviews and speaking to actually end users and telling them like, oh, this is what I'm trying to do, the feedback I got at that time was, we don't want to wear another sock. Like, our limb is hot, it's sweaty, we don't want to wear another sock. And so because of that, I kind of worked with them and took their feedback into account and then ended up creating a vibrating band. So the iteration went from sock to sock to sock to Velcro strap to fabric, like neoprene material, to another material, to what it is right now. And so that is kind of what the iteration looked like, from cables sticking out to like a cardboard box to 3D printed enclosures to over the counter shelf plastic enclosures that we cut out with looking all weird and stuff, to actual molded enclosures that we currently have to the final product. So it was because of people like Chris that I met along the way that I was able to prototype my product to get to where it was right now. Also working with the engineering teams at different universities, like getting their feedback, like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. And this was towards after like the beta version, trying to develop other versions of the device, working with engineering senior design teams from the University of Delaware, or business schools from, maybe UPenn or wherever it is, and getting those students to actually really get involved in a real life situation of a company I was trying to build. And I think that really helped. I wasn't afraid to share my idea. Of course, I had like a patent pending at that time due to the advice that I got from my mentors and advisors. But I shared my idea with anyone and everyone that would listen. I pitched it in any event that was thrown my way. And that helped me really find the help that I needed. And sometimes I didn't even know I needed that help until someone brought it to my attention. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, we'll give that a shot. And then it ends up turning out to be something that I needed down the road.
I love it. So there was a lot to unpack there, but what I love is that there are multiple iterations of the product
Yes.
and the importance of that customer discovery process. And oftentimes when I'm talking to founders, whether it be within our wearable tech ecosystem or if I'm coaching founders in other programs, they'll be surprised when I say you need to go back and do more as it relates to customer discovery. And some of them will say, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "You didn't get it right yet. Like you're not there yet. You're almost there." So I love that you've had some success there. I want to kind of touch on the team before we transition to the inspiration. So when you were starting out, you were by yourself. You encountered people that only wanted money. And again, these are things that we often hear from all of our founders that who can they trust? Who can they go to? And when they don't have a check to give someone, how do they move beyond, that particular phase? What does your team look like now? And what advice would you give to our listeners as well as to our other ecosystem and to our other founders in the ecosystem as relates to building a real good team?
Yeah, so our team is still really small. A lot of our team consists of contractors that work with us because right now we're in the phase of just selling our product and collecting feedback and data from our customers for the next iteration. We don't have a big team. It's mostly me, a contractor. Chris Wells, he's mostly off now, but he was like on and off. So after it got to a point where I had no money to pay anymore, he goes, "Amira, don't worry about it. Like I'm gonna help you. I believe in what you're doing." And he really gave me his time and help throughout the years to get the product to where it is right now. So right now I see him as on rest period, but if I need his help, like he's there for me. And so like I have him. I know I can always turn to him. And then we have students that usually work for us during like the different seasons, like summer interns, winter interns, spring interns. And I've been very fortunate that because I can't afford to have a team that's on staff 24 or on staff 9 to 5, 40 hours a week, whatever it is. We work with mostly with contractors, which is
Mhm.
perfectly fine for the stage that we're in with our company. We work with student interns, as I mentioned. And then we also have like mentors and advisors that give us their time. I have like one or two mentors that actually roll up their sleeve and be like, "Okay, Mira, this is what you need to do. Hey, here's how we're gonna do it." And that's just been so helpful. So I would consider them as part of my team, even though they're not getting paid for the work and effort. I just been so fortunate to find people that believe in what I'm doing. Sometimes even more than I do. Like more than I do. They really truly believe in what I'm doing. They can see like where I can go and they're really trying to help me get there. And I'm just so grateful to all those people.
I'm so grateful that you were able to pull back the curtain on the operation piece because, again, it's important for our listeners and for other founders going through this journey. Oftentimes, they think that they need to have this full time staff in order to get results, and it's a process. So, thank you for confirming the notion of contractors and interns and having really good advisors and mentors who do things pro bono. And that's the wonderful thing about, again, I always have to plug our ecosystem. We vetted a number of professionals that are in this space that can help at so many different areas that believe in wearable tech. They absolutely believe. Okay, so when did you believe? Where did this inspiration come from? Because you have some unique experiences from work as well as being a student athlete.
Oh yeah, so that's a good question. So I actually came up with this idea in 2014. So I was undergraduate study at the University of Delaware studying biomedical engineering, and it was winter session. And during our winter break, the track and field athletes don't go home. Most athletes, you can't go home because you're still in season,
Hmm.
or you have to practice. And so I knew I really didn't want to just do practice all winter. I wanted to get some kind of hands experience. And so my department had that time had a course called clinical immersion, where basically you would sign up, and if you're chosen, you will be placed in different clinics, depending on what you're interested in. Some people were interested in like things that had to do with like surgery. Some people were interested in things that had to do with physical therapy. I was interested in things that had to do with prosthetics. And that was the first year they actually had a prosthetic clinic partner.
Wow.
And so I was one of the, I think four, I might have that number wrong, like students that were picked to rotate at the 4 or 5 clinics that clinic had around Delaware. And so I spent winter session going to practice and going to this internship, and competing, of course. And while doing this clinical immersion, the goal was to find clinical unmet needs, write a list of them each week, talk about what your solution would be for them. We weren't tasked to create anything or invent anything, just come up with solutions that you think could help.
Mm-hmm.
And I had like a list of like different unmet needs. But what really stuck out to me that I wanted to present at the end of this course, which we had a symposium to present at a hospital, was the issue of phantom pain management. It just stuck to me because when I think about the prosthetic space, when I was doing my research about the prosthetic field, it was the glamour of that space that really caught my attention, right? You have the Paralympic Blade Runners. You just search prosthetic and you see like all these cool gadgets and everybody looks like a cyborg. It was the coolest thing ever. I was like, this is what I want to do. This is the future Robocops of the world that I want to build and participate in. And that was really what got me in the field. And yes, while I was working at the clinic, I got to see that. But the issue of phantom pain that really was a non-glamorous aspect of the space just kept coming up. Like people were talking about pain in a part of their limb that wasn't there. Like, oh, my leg feels like it's on fire. My arm feels like it's getting re-amputated. I feel like someone is taking an axe and like going through my cat, like very graphic descriptions. And my mind was just like confused. I was like, you don't have your limb. Like, how are you still feeling that pain? So that curiosity really got me thinking about it, speaking to the individuals who spoke to me about it, asking people who didn't speak to me about it if this was a problem for them, and them telling me like, yes, but I don't talk about it because people think I'm crazy, right? So for me, that was just like, okay, there has to be a way. You can't be suffering in silent. Like, what is being done? How is it helping you? Is it not helping you? Learn that medication was the number one method to treat this pain, and it wasn't really solving the problem for a lot of people because, again, there's the whole opioid epidemic and all these other side effects that you get with medication. And so at that time, when I started speaking to individuals about drug-free solutions they were using, they were telling me like, oh, what I would do is I would massage my limb. I would tap my limb. And they didn't mean nicely tap their limb. They mean like I would beat my limb till like the pain went away. Like, you know, I was like, what? I was like, yeah, I'll wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, just like whacking my limb till the pain goes away. I was like, for how long? They're like, it depends. Like sometimes it could be for seconds, it could be for minutes, it could be for hours, you know. And at the end of the day or whenever you're done, if the pain goes away, you're exhausted. You know, you can't go back to sleep, you know. And so my goal was to figure out a way to automate that process for them, this drug-free alternative they were speaking about. And by chance, at that time, I was also practicing and making up my workout for my lift workout. And I ran into a vibrating platform. Really, that's where I got my inspiration. There was a whole vibrating platform that was sitting in the gym. And I was just walking by and I see, I'm like, oh, what's this? And I was just kind of playing with it. Like I stepped on it, I was playing with it. And I got to experience like the vibrations and how it works. And I had a light bulb moment there. I was like, oh, that's how you know I was still thinking about this problem while I was working out and doing work. And I just had this light bulb moment. I was like, oh my goodness, vibration. Vibration therapy might be the solution. And I thought I coined that term, vibration therapy. Lo and behold, that term has been around for a very long time. but I started doing research about that and learned that NASA was using vibrations to help their astronauts increase bone density, and there are people using it for women with osteoporosis, and people are using it to study blood flow. I was like, oh my gosh, there are all this really cool research about vibration therapy, but there was none I can find about phantom pain and amputation pain. And so that really started my journey with digging and trying to find really literature on that before I decided that I was going to venture into that as a solution.
Wow.
And I found 2 papers from a researcher in, I think, Sweden or something. But it was in English, so it was great. So I was able to at least quote that. And I was like, he had 10 patients, and this is what it said. So yeah, that's really what started my journey. And it really gave me the confidence to actually show some kind of data and evidence that vibration could help with this, as well as evidence I had collected from my customer research, that patients were telling me they were hitting their limb, tapping their limb, really traumatizing their limb till their pain went away. And my goal was to automate that process. So yeah, that's really where the idea came from.
I love it. And it's so interesting because one of our other companies that we support, one of the co-founders is a para-Olympian. So we're definitely going to match you up with him as you continue to go to your next level. So with that being said, what's next?
Yeah,
for you and the company, what's next?
I mean, right now our goal is really to sell our inventory and really start collecting as much data as we can on how our customers are using our product. So we're collecting the identified data right now just to see if we can see some kind of correlation on how frequently phantom pain occurs for an individual
Mm-hmm.
or for a group as a whole, and seeing what could be affecting their pain and their pain frequency. And that's currently data that's not available anywhere. And so we're currently working on collecting that data, as we believe that data will also be helpful in developing future products, improving on our products, and hopefully helping us raise money from investors in the future. And our goal is to be able to raise funding to grow our team and to really build a team that can take therapy to the next level. Right now, we're still in the baby phase where we've built the product, launched the product into the market. We're selling the product right now. And it's just this big leap that we still have to make. But it takes a team of people to do it. Yeah, I can't do it by, by myself. And so that's really where we're at right now.
Okay, I love it. I love it. And so one of the things we have in common is making sure we're discussing accessibility and how innovators should be thinking about what does accessibility mean. What tips do you have for those that may be listening or those that may participate in our future hackathons or maybe ideating for another pitch competition in the near future? Based off of your experience, what advice can you give those folks as far as making things accessible or thinking with a different mindset?
Yeah, I mean, considering I'm in the space where accessibility is very important, it's funny because everything now that I see in regards to what can be done, what can be, is always around that helping people have more access to things, right? And I'm all about social impact. If you can find a way to improve people's lives in some way, I see that as the best route to take in entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is really hard, is a lonely journey a lot of times, very stressful. You must be willing to not make money for a couple of years and still be fine with that. Be
Yes,
broke for a long time, and still be fine with that. So you need something to motivate you. And I think when you know you're doing something that is positively impacting people's life and changing their lives for the better, it really keeps you going and motivates you through your very low lows, right? When you feel like giving up. So trying to make sure that you're finding unmet needs, and accessibility is one of it. And the thing is not even about finding people with disabilities and trying to solve a problem that they have. It could be a village in somewhere in Africa that needs access to water, some kind of resources, or an irrigation system. Like, this accessibility can mean a lot of things. Even in regards to wearable tech, it can mean a lot of things.
hmm
But as long as you're doing something that is improving people's lives in some form of manner, not only is it going to be rewarding for you, you're also changing people's lives, and eventually you might make money from it, as long as you're solving a
absolutely.
problem, right? Eventually. Even
Keep that
if
focus
you
on
don't, you're
solving the
still
problem.
happy.
Keep that focus on solving the problem and keep yourself happy in the process, right?
Exactly.
Community is key. Community is
community
key.
is community is very, very important, and make sure that, and I think it's just one of the best advice I got, and I think it was really the leading thing with the entrepreneurship program I was in, was that get out of the building. Get out, go speak to the people you're trying to solve a problem for, or the customer you're trying to sell to. Go speak to them and see, do they even want it. Sometimes some people build things, spend money, time, effort, and something nobody wants, that the market never needed, didn't need at all, and now you're trying to make sure that they buy your products, and you're wondering, like, why aren't they buying your products? Like, you never spoke to them, you never asked them what
Exactly.
they needed, and if your solution can actually, it's something they actually want, right? So really getting out of the building, speaking to people, and don't be scared when people tell your baby is ugly. It's fine, it's all right. It gives you feedback. It makes you, feel like, okay, I might not be going down this route, but now I know what to turn my energy to, and I'm not wasting time and resources. So I think that was like one of the saving grace for me as well.
I love it. And that's wisdom there. So, again, a community is key, folks. We have community for you here at Wearable Tech Ventures. We have a number of different programs. So, you might hear it in our pre show or maybe post show, those opportunities that you could take advantage of, or even check out the show notes. But we have to talk about this because you're doing something incredibly special for military vets. And so, thank you for supporting those that have served our country. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like and how can our audience assist you in that endeavor?
Yeah. So we when we launched our beta, a lot of the first set of group of people that we gave devices to were military veterans who had lost their limb. They were suffering from phantom limb pain, and we initially tried to go through the VA, but we just weren't educated on how to go through that route. And so what we did is that we raised crowdfunding from our family and friends that allowed us to actually build this product and give them to the military veterans that got them. And we're hoping to do more of this this year, next year, but it all comes down to funding. Unfortunately, everything comes down to money. You
Yes,
need money to build product. And so if you are interested in supporting a military veteran that has phantom limping that would benefit from using our device, you can go to our website and purchase a device and just put in a note that you're donating it to a military veteran. We have a list of military veterans that have signed up to receive a device.
I love
We are still working down the VA route. We're still working on that. So our goal is to eventually get into the VA, so the VA can provide this for their veterans. But while we're working that route, we're working on fulfilling the list of veterans that we have right now.
I love it. So there you have it, folks. You need to go to our website. What's the website, Amira?
It is TheraV.me, so www.therav.me.
Make sure you go to that website. And I love your dual approach to make sure that the folks that need it can actually obtain it. And there's a gift. And so now we're about to head into the holiday season. And if you happen to listen to this episode even after the holidays, still go to the website and see how you can assist Amira. Because one thing we do here is we help one another. So even if you can't do it, maybe your business can sponsor or somebody else can, because she's doing something amazing and we want to help her gain some traction. So, Amira, we know that real life happens. We're real people. I know you got some little ones that I absolutely adore. I saw them in person. And so I think they might want their mama right now. But I also love that you're so multidimensional and that you are showing all of us that it's possible. It's possible to be a founder. Possible to be a founder that had no clue about entrepreneurship, that stumbled onto a problem, developed a solution while you were in school, and you beat the odds in so many different arenas while developing yourself, going to school, and building a family at the same time. Kudos to you. You are our shero. And I know sometimes it can be difficult managing and juggling all of that, but you have our support. We are incredibly proud of you. I know the University of Delaware and the Horn Entrepreneurship is too. I've met many of them. They're just amazing, amazing group of people. So I look forward to going back on campus and talking with the folks there. But before we close out, is there anything else you want to share with our folks? And then also, please make sure you share where they can find you on social media as well as your website.
Yeah, of course. So our website is TheraV.com or TheraV.me. Also, our handle for social media is at TheraV.me. But yeah, just support us. Get a device for a veteran. If you know any way for us to get into the VA quicker, please contact me. info@weartherapy.com or just find our contact information on our website.
And we'll have that information in our show notes as well. So, folks, this is just the beginning. If you have never heard of Amira, or perhaps you haven't watched the hashtag We Wednesday episode with us together with the Undersecretary of Commerce and the Director of USPTO, Kathy Vidal, you will continue to hear her name. She's doing amazing work. So we're so excited. Thank you so much for sharing our time. And folks, make sure you listen to the announcements coming up next. We look forward to you listening and sharing this episode of Wearable Takeover.